Let's get more on this. I'm joined now by Leslie Vinjamuri. She's the president and CEO of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. Leslie, great to have you on the show. We played that in a little clip from President Trump. We've also heard very similar words just in the last few hours from Mike Waltz, of course, at the UN, and from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said, I'm going to quote him here, Leslie, "This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live, and we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operation for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States." Just frame this for us, because this started to be about going after drug trafficking, right? And then democracy. And now we're talking about a bigger picture here.
Sure. And this is, I think, what everybody's worried about. We saw it in the national security strategy that the United States has made it clear that this administration wants to enlist its friends to help secure its dominance in the Western Hemisphere. And that is a, quite frankly, radical shift from the international order, which has been grounded in states, in sovereignty, in the UN Charter, and in a number of international institutions. It has not been framed for 8 decades as being about America securing, controlling, and using all necessary means to do so in the Western Hemisphere. So it's a radical change, just definitionally. I think many people, certainly Europeans and certainly those in Denmark and especially Greenland, will be Googling to see whether they're in the Western Hemisphere. And guess what? They are. And so I think this is obviously, it's a very serious point. This is one of the real questions. Is this about Venezuela, Central America, Latin America, or also about Europe?
Look, and I think it's important to point out, I've reported on numerous occasions from Venezuela. Cuban intelligence is very present there. Russia has its claws on a lot of Venezuela, and it has for a very long time. The Chinese as well, in terms of investment, of course, they rely heavily on Venezuelan oil, about 90%. So this has always been the case. So why now, when you're talking about, the United States going after, seeking control of this Western Hemisphere, why now, you think, Leslie?
Well, I do think, you've grounded it firmly. This is a U.S. that cares about geopolitical competition. China in America's backyard. The Chinese just visited Venezuela on Friday. Yeah. And when you put that together with a country that is rich in resources and potential, if those oil reserves are tapped and exported, ceding that to China, to Russian influence, despite the fact that Donald Trump is friendly with Vladimir Putin on and off, is simply not something that this administration wishes to see. And it's also willing to push the boundaries of what we have come to see as normal, expected, legitimate international behavior in order to secure that dominance. And that's the thing that I think we are all finding surprising. I think we're finding it, frankly, surprising and shocking when we woke up to see a leader captured. The dilemma, and we all know it, is that this is not a good leader. This is not a legitimately elected leader. This is a leader who's done, frankly, terrible things to his country. And so there's an argument to be made that if the president had built a case, had built domestic and European Western support, had developed a strategy, gotten people behind him, and made it clear that there was a limited goal, it's possibly the case, we've seen it happen before, that he would have been supported.
Yeah, indeed. Look, let me put out to you and to our viewers what the New York Times editorial board has written. By proceeding without any semblance of international legitimacy, they write, valid legal authority, domestic endorsement, Mr. Trump risks providing justification for authoritarians in China, Russia, and elsewhere who want to dominate their own neighbors. More immediately, he threatens to replicate the American hubris that led to the invasion of Iran in 2003. So just taking a step back, if you're a leader of Denmark, obviously with Greenland, or Mexico even, right? Mexico or any other countries in Latin America, how do you react to this? How do you respond?
If you're a weak country, weak in the sense of, military capabilities, and America has a serious, dedicated interest in you, then you're deeply concerned about what to do, and it takes a long time to build up anything even approximating the kind of resources that one would need to push off the still most powerful country in the world. It's not actually possible. So then the question is, what are your alternatives as you begin to build allies, partners, and friends to, I mean, it's shocking to say, but to safeguard yourself against what previously for many countries has been their strongest ally and protector. But, there's a caveat here, which is that I don't think that it's the case that America wishes to intervene in every country. It's actually Donald Trump has made it pretty clear which countries he's interested in. So there's a sort of focal point here. And to your broader question, will the Chinese use this as an incentive, as an open door for Taiwan and elsewhere? A lot of this isn't just signaling. It comes down to deterrence. The United States still has a very important decision and role to play in deterring China or Russia or any other country from aggressing and transgressing. Question is whether it will use that. And so I think the number one concern here is the grave uncertainty that this U.S. administration has layered onto what's already a very difficult, dynamic, geopolitically fraught moment in international relations. Having an America that's so deeply unwilling to commit is very unsettling, as everybody sitting in Europe knows, but also across the United States.
And the irony is, if you're President Putin, you're looking at this, you are thinking, well, this could be a military operation of his kind. And it goes back, and I'm sure you saw, and this is circulating, the Fiona Hill transcript, of course, to Congress. And I want to get your thoughts on this because it's important. Because in 2019, Fiona Hill, in her testimony to the US Congress, said that the Russians were kind of strongly signaling to the United States about some sort of swap arrangement between Venezuela and Ukraine. Page, I think, 19, she says, and the Russians at this particular juncture were signaling very strongly that they wanted to somehow make some very strange swap arrangement between Venezuela and Ukraine. You want us out of your backyard. So, I mean, do you buy this?
I mean, Fiona Hill is a very serious person.
Oh no, I don't mean Fiona Hill. I mean the potential of some sort of arrangement here with Russia. Yes.
I buy the idea that this current U.S. administration is willing to engage in notions of swaps that many of us deeply schooled, whether in or out of government, would consider to be far beyond the pale, difficult to implement, hard to imagine that one would assume the credible commitment of Russia in any case, or that that's the key motivation. But, it's been several years. The facts on the ground have changed. Russia has invaded Ukraine. The United States has led so far a coalition to resist that, to support Ukraine. So the context is not the same. And I think that matters fundamentally. But the basic notion, right, it sort of gets back to this broader question of, are there trades? There's been discussion of the possibility of a grand bargain that Trump would allow China to take Taiwan. The United States would have hemispheric dominance. We know the story of spheres of influence. I think it's very muddy, very murky, very cloudy. But the broader question, is Donald Trump willing to support Europe in its defense of Ukraine? Is Donald Trump willing to deter Russia, to maintain a policy of strategic ambiguity when it comes to Taiwan? Is he willing to cross boundaries and borders? Again, what we know is that we simply aren't being given any basis in which to feel confident or secure. And that is the fundamental problem. It's the uncertainty, it's the unpredictability. And it's, some people would say it's the predictability that when Donald Trump says wants Greenland, that it's potentially, I mean, one hates to even say it, it's potentially a very serious risk. It's in the Western Hemisphere. It's part of the world that is considered by this administration to be important to its security. And for some reason, Donald Trump does not believe that the Europeans have what it takes to step up. Therein lies a very serious challenge.
We are going to Greenland some point this hour for their thoughts on this at this junction. Leslie, I could speak to you for hours. Thank you so much. Really fascinating. Leslie Vinjamuri there from Chicago.